Hello, everybody. Today we'll be talking about blended learning and specifically for elementary school teachers. So, to get started, what is blended learning and why is it important? Blended learning simply is taking aspects of the brick and mortar learning or traditional classroom learning style and putting it together with online learning. So, this is taking the best of both worlds, mixing them together, and getting the benefits of both. So this can be applied to a variety of teaching environments, and it can also have multiple benefits. So to get started, we will be discussing about the different types of blended learning models, how we can implement them, and how it can be used in your classroom. So right here we have highlighted the four types of blended learning models. These include the rotation model, the flex model, the a la carte model, and the enriched virtual model. So to start off, we have the rotation model. In this rotation model, the students rotate on a fixed schedule between learning modalities. So basically, all of the students are going to be switching to different centers based on what they are learning, and each center will uh, can incorporate either technology or not technology within each center. So, for example, um, we can have students learning independently, or we can have students learning on the computer. However, all of these centers are going to take place in the classroom setting. At least one of them, however, needs to incorporate online learning. So, within the rotation model, we have four subsets. So we have the station rotation, where students rotate within a contained classroom to all the stations. We have the lab rotation, where students rotate to a computer lab for the online learning station. We have the flipped classroom, where the students do most of their learning online and then come to the school or the classroom setting for teacher-guided practice or projects. And then we have the individual rotation, where the students do not have to go to all the centers, and it's basically a personalized list of centers that each student will have to go to. They do not necessarily all have to rotate to the same centers or to the same centers at the same time. We also have the flex model. So students here will primarily do their content learning on the computers. The teachers are present and may pull students for small group or direct instruction as well. And there is face-to-face enrichment time with teachers, and that can vary. It can be daily, it can be a few times per week, it can be a few times per month. It really all depends on how the teacher would like to implement the flex model. We also have the a la carte model. So students may take a course entirely online, but at a brick and mortar school or off-site. So this is not a whole school experience. That means that not all of the students in the school have this type of education. So the a la carte course can be taken off-site, but other courses are taken in that face-to-face on-campus environment. Usually you'll see things like this in higher education. We don't really see it in the elementary school setting as much. What comes to mind for me is in my own personal experience, I was attending the university and I actually took supplemental courses from a different college. And I was actually able to take those supplemental courses so I could get more endorsements towards my elementary education degree. So that's kind of an example of how the a la carte model would be applied. However, like I said before, we don't really see that in the elementary school setting. We also have the enriched virtual model. So students have required face-to-face learning sessions with their teachers. However, students may complete their remaining coursework in an online setting. So this is different from the flipped classroom method because the face-to-face interactions are not a daily occurrence, but they are still required. And you can see that the word required is emphasized there because that is a big component of the enriched virtual model. So when we are looking at the blended learning model, there are actually a lot of advantages for teachers and why it's incredibly helpful to implement into your classroom. So first, teaching using the blended learning model can be less expensive to deliver, which means it's more affordable over time, and I'm sorry, it's more affordable and it saves time overall. When the students are taking part in the blended learning model, they are usually engaged for longer periods of time. Now, I do want to stress that blended learning model does not necessarily mean that technology is the key aspect of it. That is not what blended learning model is. The blended learning model is just taking the best components from using technology implementation as well as the face-to-face interactions and putting them together. So when I mention the increase in engaged students, usually a lot of the time when students are using technology, many of them are more interested in what they're doing. It's usually more interactive. In a traditional classroom setting with a piece of paper and a pencil, students can lose focus very quickly and they can be distracted with things all around them. But when they have technology, usually technology is very interactive. It keeps the student engaged, it can keep them going, and it can also provide different resources to keep the students engaged over time or for longer periods of time. Another advantage of the blended learning model is that there is better information and feedback on work. What I mean by that is that communication is actually facilitated using technology. Even when we are not with our students, we are still able to communicate with them, leaving comments on assignments online, such as, for example, on Google Classroom. We're able to provide grades to the students. We're able to provide comments, how we can better assist the students. We can also provide them with resources and so on and so forth. Another thing that the blended learning model helps out with is team teaching. It is not just one teacher who can be providing education to the students. There are other resources that are available for the students to use in order to further their education. We can also collaborate with other teachers or even other classrooms. So it's not just put on the teacher to teach all of the content. We can use other resources in order to teach with other people or with other students. Another benefit is the extended time with students. So when students have the opportunity to work with technology during while being part of the blended learning model, students have some of their time with technology, some of the time with their teachers. And so, because the students are occupied with the technology for part of their learning, that opens up a lot of time for us to have one on one interactions with students, as well as small group experiences with the students, so we can establish a better relationship with them and not just feel like we are overwhelmed with all of our students all of the time. The blended learning model also helps to motivate hard to reach kids. Like I said, using technology actually helps us engage the students a little bit more. It helps keeps their interest more. It also allows us for, as you can see down here, individualized learning and differentiation. A lot of the time we see some students who are misbehaving or who do not want to learn. Usually they do so because they do not understand the material, or it's too hard, or even too easy. So in order to motivate those students, the differentiation that can be provided through blended learning actually will keep them engaged and keep them challenged and keep them intrigued in what they're learning. Furthermore, there's also new options to teach at home. So now we can move education and teaching outside of the classroom as well. So we can continue to motivate students. We can continue to keep them engaged outside of the classroom as well as in the classroom. The benefits don't just go for the teachers, it also will go for the students. So as you can see here, there are a lot of benefits for students when it comes to the blended learning model. So e-learning enables students to access the materials from anywhere. So this can be additional assistance to help them at home with their homework. This can be additional resources. This can be, as it says here, global resources. So it doesn't just have to be the things that we have available in our physical classroom. Another great thing is the self-pacing for students, or the individualized learning. And also, e-learning will allow more effective interactions between learners, so we can use things like emails, we can use things like discussions, we can use things like chat rooms. Students can also track their progress while they're doing their work. So if we're using Google Classroom, or if we're using things like Freckle, students can see how they continue to grow over time while they're completing their assignments. Students are also able to learn through a variety of activities and learning styles. This can include things like visuals, things like audio recordings, things like video.